Welcome to this India Today special, The Long Story. In this episode, we take a look at the problem with Nepal. Indo-Nepal relations have gone through a paradigm shift over the last few years. Many experts believe that this tension has been building up over the years now. Now, as both nations inch towards some fruitful diplomatic talks, let's take a look at the bigger picture of the evolving nature of ties between India and Nepal. And how did the tensions really in the first place between the two countries, the neighbouring countries, escalate to this point? Let's take a listen.
A landlocked country, an old friend, a neighbour, and a border that doesn't feel like one. This little hill country has been India's long-standing friend. But then a few months ago, something changed. June 2020, something that was a common occurrence only on India's borders to the west and east happened at the Indo-Nepal border. In Bihar's Kishanganj, Nepal police opened fire on Indian nationals, killing one person and injuring two others.
यहाँ पर से नेपाली पुलिस द्वारा इंडिया बॉर्डर से एक व्यक्ति को ले गया, उसके बचाने के चक्कर में ये सब गया। उसी क्रम में उधर से नेपाली पुलिस द्वारा गोली चलाई गई और उसमें मेरे भाई को जान चलेगी।
About a month before this incident, on 8th of May, via a video conference, Indian Home Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated a new route for the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra in Tibet, China. A new 80-kilometer route connecting the Lipulekh Pass in Uttarakhand with Dharchula, considerably shortening the distance for the pilgrimage.
घटिया बगड़ लिपुलेख सड़क मार्ग को देश की जनता को समर्पित करते हुए बेहद खुशी का अनुभव कर रहा हूं।
Lipulekh sits atop the Kalapani Valley and forms a tri-junction between India, Nepal and China. India reopened the Lipulekh Pass for Kailash Mansarovar following construction of a new 22-kilometer road. It opens from a village called Gunji. Nepal claimed the village and the road was in its territory, tipping the beginning of a standoff as Nepal closed its open borders with India.
पहले तो प्रशासन तो कुछ कहते भी नहीं थे, आते जाते थे, उससे मतलब नहीं रखते थे। अब कुछ ज्यादा हो गया है। बॉर्डर एरिया बिजनेस व्यापार था, यहाँ सारे चौपट हो गया, 5% पर आ गया हुआ है, 100% में 5%। यहाँ कुछ ऐसा समस्या ही आ गया हुआ, इंसान के अभी भी समझ में आ नहीं रहा है। बॉर्डर पर जाते थे तो सूट के पहले टोकबो नहीं करता था, अभी इस पार के पुलिस हो चाहे उस पार के हो, सारे आदमी अभी चुके ना हो चुके हैं।
थोड़ा बहुत जो इंटरनेशनल बॉर्डर है तो चेकिंग होती थी, लेकिन इस तरीके से नहीं होता था। ये काफी ज्यादा हद जो है ना पार कर रहे हैं लोग, और यहाँ पे इस तरीके से अगर करेंगे तो यहाँ के जो बिजनेस हैं वो काफी ज्यादा नुकसान हो रहा है यहाँ पे भी, और दोनों साइड, क्योंकि उधर भी जो है खाने को कुछ नहीं है, और जब तक यहाँ से कुछ नहीं ले जाएंगे तब तक वो जो 2 किलो 4 किलो रोजमर्रा की जिंदगी है वो जो है सुचारू रूप से नहीं चल पाएगा।
सत्यमेव जयते लेखा हुन्छ, सत्यमेव जयते भारतको चिन्ह पनि छ, विश्वास चाहिँ म गर्छु।
On 13th of June, Nepal's lower house of parliament unanimously approved a constitutional amendment. It legalized a new territorial map, which showed the areas of Kalapani, Limpiadhura and Lipulekh within its borders. Areas which till now were in India.
हामी हाम्रो भूमि खाली लिम्पियाधुरा, लिपुलेख, कालापानी अहिलेको विवादको विषय त्यो हो जो भूगोल नै सर्लक्कै कालापानीमा भारतीय फौज बसेर त्यहाँभन्दा उता लिपुलेख र लिम्पियाधुरा त्यसलाई भारतले कब्जा गरेको छ। हामीबाट त्यो भूमि सेना राखेर छुट्याएर लगिया छ, सेना नराखेसम्म त हाम्रो चलनमा छँदै थियो। सेना राखेपछि हामी सेना भएका ठाउँमा पनि जान पाएनौँ, त्योभन्दा उता पनि जान पाएनौँ, र यसरी एक ढङ्गले भन्ने हो भने यो कब्जा हो।
India and Nepal share almost 1,800 kilometers of the border, which has been an open border since 1950. And the cross-border movement of people and trade and goods and capital has benefited both the countries for all these years. Further, I think it's important to note that 97% of the border issues, mapping issues between India and Nepal have been resolved, and only 3% of the border yet remained to be resolved.
And it is this 3% that gave a fresh stir to rivalries between the Himalayan nation and its behemoth neighbour. Located on the banks of the river Kali at an altitude of 3,600 meters, the Kalapani territory lies at the eastern border of Uttarakhand in India and Nepal's Sudur Paschim Pradesh in the west. India claims the area is part of Uttarakhand's Pithoragarh district, while Nepal believes it to be part of its Dharchula district. Add to this the domestic political rumblings in Nepal that were fueled by the latest cartographic row. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli claimed India was trying to topple his government. His opposition claims he's using the international skirmish to mask over failures.
नेपालको राष्ट्रियता यति कमजोर छैन नक्सा छापे बापत संविधानमा नक्सा सामेल गरे बापत यस देशको प्रधानमन्त्रीलाई हटाउँछु भन्ने कसैले सपना देखेको छ भने आजको राष्ट्रियता त्यस्तो कमजोर छैन यो नसोचे पनि हुन्छ.
After tensions rose, several diplomats began urging New Delhi to hold talks with Kathmandu. And a ray of hope amid the souring of ties came on the Indian Independence Day as the Prime Minister of Nepal dialed his Indian counterpart to wish him on the occasion. Soon after, the countries held diplomatic talks but discussed development projects only.
I believe words are important, but words must be matched by deeds, and the ball is squarely in Nepal's court to be able to undertake actions which show real goodwill towards India, in particular in areas impinging on India's sovereignty and security.
What is important that this mechanism is there, and they are talking about implementing the projects, how implementations are going on. There are say infrastructure, hydroelectricity, border area development.
First oversight mechanism meeting between India and Nepal after the map controversy and the border tensions between the two countries. The two nations have decided that the periodic meetings cannot be ignored, that development projects are important, and despite pressures from China, Nepal and India will go ahead and surge ahead on the bilateral front. In New Delhi, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
While the map row had not yet cooled down, Nepal's Prime Minister KP Oli went on to steer the hornet's nest again by claiming the heritage of Lord Ram to Nepal. In fact, something that didn't go down well with the Indian side. Up next, a report on what happened when Oli claimed Ram.
Immediately after taking charge, KP Oli visited India in April. He also invited Narendra Modi to visit Janakpur, Muktinath and Kathmandu. All these places are considered vital for the BJP Prime Minister's cultural encircling policy, as it would effectively create a Ramayana tourist circuit around India, Nepal, Sri Lanka.
ये यात्रा की एक बहुत बड़ी मिसाल है. हम दोनों देश मिलकर के रामायण सर्किट के भ्रमण के लिए आगे की योजना के लिए आज प्रारंभ कर रहे हैं.
Little did Prime Minister Modi know that in the years to follow, his Nepalese counterpart would claim for Nepal the entire heritage of Ram. Something on which BJP felt it had the rights, having historically built its entire campaign to power around the importance of Ram to India.
जनकपुर अयोध्या पश्चिमपट्टि टोलीमा वाल्मीकि आश्रम र दशरथबाट सन्तान नभएपछि उत्कृष्ट यज्ञ लगाउने पण्डितजी रेड्डीका
Nepal's Prime Minister claimed that Ram was Nepali and that the real Ayodhya too lies in Nepal. Oli also alleged that India has created a fake Ayodhya. While a Ram Barat, a marriage procession, goes every year from the Indian Ayodhya to Janakpur in Nepal, believed to be the birthplace of Ram's wife Sita, and thousands of pilgrims from both sides of the border witnessed this marriage. Soon after his statement, the Nepal Prime Minister's effigy was burnt at various places in India. Social media too started buzzing. Some were angry and showed it, and others found funny ways to express displeasure.
हेलो ओली, राम जी नेपाली थे, बात तुमने पहले क्यों ना बोली? और ये डेटा कहां से निकाल रहे हो तुम स्लोली? राम जी अगर नेपाली थे तो तुमने कभी दशहरे में रावण जलाया?
To add fuel to the fire, when in a press conference, Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar hailed Buddha as a great Indian, Nepal objected to it and said that there was no doubt that Buddha's birthplace was in Nepal.
दोनों देशों के बीच बुद्ध और राम का के बारे में सहयोग है। बुद्ध सर्किट की बात है, राम सर्किट की बात है, तो सहयोग की बात है। उसके बाद बुद्ध को भी राम को भी दोनों देश मानते हैं, दोनों देश श्रद्धा करते हैं। तो दोनों देश को जोड़ने की ये चीजें है, इसमें दोनों देशों को दूर रखने की लेने की ये चीज ये नहीं है। ये तो दोनों देशों को नजदीक लाने की चीजें है।
While all this is creating bad blood between the neighbors, both India and Nepal are going ahead with their constructions of Ram temples in their own Ayodhyas.
Now, while India and Nepal have always been long-standing friends and neighbors, there came a time when the friendship wasn't as cordial. The diplomatic ties turned sour. In fact, the 2015 Madhesi conflict brought an economic blockade in Nepal and became a diplomatic blockade for India and Nepal relations thereafter.
Nepal saw violent protests erupt in 2015 when the ethnic Madhesi community revolted, demanding more rights and blocked goods coming in from India. The 5-month blockade crippled life in the landlocked country. The blockade gave rise to anti-India sentiments in Nepal. As many believed it was India that was responsible for the economic blockade.
छिन्न भिन्न करके छत विछत करके मधेसी भूगोल को एक कोई उसका पहचान अलग से नहीं रहने दिया गया है।
राजधानी में हम लोग ऐसा खाद्य पदार्थ अथवा पेट्रोलियम कुछ ऐसे नहीं जाने देंगे जिससे कि वो सरकार अपना मूवमेंट करे। अगर सरकार को हम रोकने में सफल होंगे तो मुझे लगता है कि हमारा मार्ग इस संविधान में पूरा होगा।
The blockade and its impact hit Nepal hard. More so as it came soon after a devastating earthquake that had crippled life in the Himalayan country. The April 2015 earthquake had claimed 9,000 lives. But while what happened in April was considered an act of God, the blockade that began in September of that year was certainly an act of human nature. The Nepal government squarely blamed New Delhi for it.
You see, our stand is very, very clear. We do not want to be prescriptive. It is for the people of Nepal and the political parties in Nepal to arrive at a mutually acceptable solution, something for which ownership can be taken by all sections. There was also a discussion on this blockade. You know, EM said that this is a totally false allegation. There has been no blockade by India at all.
The blockade paved the way for a new constitution in Nepal. While India took official note of the new constitution, the economic blockade continued and New Delhi expressed its concerns over transporters unwilling to move into Nepal, fearing a security threat. Nepal was already facing an acute shortage of supplies, and Kathmandu, in a show of displeasure, cancelled the President of Nepal's scheduled official visit to India.
In 2015, Nepal adopted a new constitution without paying much heed to the concerns of India regarding their constitution being more inclusive for their own people.
India and Nepal have traditionally shared 1,751 kilometers of porous border, but it is not...
Bound together by historical, social, religious and cultural similarities, they've been the closest of friends and allies.
We deeply value our civilizational, cultural and friendly relations with Nepal, and our multifaceted bilateral partnership has expanded and diversified in recent years.
Be it the open border between the two nations or the pillar of India's security for decades, the Gorkha regiments. The two countries have shared the deepest military relationship possible. No two armies are as closely interlinked as those of India and Nepal. There's a tradition of decorating the chiefs of each other's armies with the highest rank that's been followed by Nepal and India since 1950, when the then Indian Army Chief General K.M. Karyappa visited Nepal. The India-Nepal Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1950 forms the bedrock of the relationship. And the two countries have had an open border ever since.
यहाँ का भी बहुत आदमी का रिलेशन नेपाल में है.
Even in the more recent times with India under Narendra Modi, there have been instances when the friendship seemed to be on sure footing. Narendra Modi's first foreign visit after being sworn in as Prime Minister of India was to Nepal to meet then Prime Minister Sushil Koirala. Koirala broke protocol to meet Modi at Kathmandu airport, setting the tone for India-Nepal relations.
धैर्य वर्ष ही एक पथिक या तीर्थालु को रूपमा मैं यहाँ आएको थिएँ.
The twin earthquakes of 25th April and 12th May 2015 caused havoc in Nepal, killing more than 9,000 people. India stepped in with disaster response teams, dispatched 43 tons of relief material and pressed into action 17 aircrafts. But all has not been well since 2015. Since the 2015 Madhesi conflict, Nepal has been turning cold towards India. In an indication of change and focus, Nepal became signatory to China's Belt and Road Initiative. China had been wooing Nepal and had given $500 million in aid to it after the earthquake. As Kathmandu increasingly tilted towards China, India-Nepal bonhomie looked far from recovered.
China would always advise Nepal that, whatever the relationship may be at a given time with India, between Nepal and India, China cannot substitute for India because geography is something you can't push it away. Even Chinese exports to Nepal, they told Nepal, would have to go through Haldia and Calcutta. So, but after Xi Jinping is coming to power there, building that Lhasa railway and the railway extending up to almost up to the border of Nepal, and then proposal to extend it to Kathmandu, all that has changed, appears to have changed. They think that they can also, Chinese can match us there, despite the ancient historical, religious, cultural, all these ties with Nepal that India has. Despite that, the unique ties, they think they can match India.
Even before Nepal became a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, India and Nepal have been working on several projects since decades. The two countries together constructed roads in the Terai region, shared petroleum product pipelines and built two hydropower projects, Arun 3 and Pancheshwar, both in the border areas. In February 2018, when Kharga Prasad Oli was sworn in as the new Prime Minister of Nepal, India hoped that relations would mend.
no alternative. We have to, no alternative motives to. We have to strengthen our friendship, develop our friendship, develop. There shouldn't be any type of misunderstanding.
Prime Minister Oli was careful not to play one giant neighbour against the other. And Nepal opened the tender for an international bidding for Buddhi Gandoki hydropower project. It had earlier been given to a Chinese firm without calling for a tender and later cancelled. For New Delhi, this was a good signal.
Speaks volumes for the extreme importance that Modi ji places on Nepal, and by active diplomacy and convince, he has to convince KP Oli, who has all along been very close to China, that India does not mean any harm to Nepal. India means Nepal well, and we will also do our utmost to help in development of Nepal.
The contract for this crucial project was eventually restored to the Chinese CGGC for $2.5 billion, leaving no scope for India and Nepal to turn the tide in the souring of their ties.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.